This video and all other videos on this channel are for entertainment purposes only. The content of this video and all other videos on this channel are the opinions of the creator only and do not constitute legal, trading, investment, or financial advice of any kind. Investing carries a high level of risk and the majority of retail clients lose money. Do not invest any capital unless you understand the risks and you are prepared to lose it all. Right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and today we're running a bit behind schedule because I actually overslept. But I think we can make up the time because I don't think there's a great deal to say. I don't really track alts, so I can't really speak on those. But I do know that for stocks and Bitcoin, they continue in a range despite this volatility at the moment. And we are still targeting late February or perhaps early March for a tradable cycle low. As I was saying in yesterday's episode, if you're new here, if you're unfamiliar with the channel, hit that subscribe button, follow along. We're going to call these trades out ahead of time. We're going to get underneath them and set public invalidation and stop loss levels so I can't possibly cheat, as we are getting ready to set up some big trades ahead of these cycle lows. The gold, silver and minor positions that we've been conquering in the level 3 member section, they're keeping meat on the table for the family at the moment. Without those, we would be stuck in this range for the stocks and Bitcoin, waiting all the way until the end of this month before we can get underneath any kind of trade setups. And unfortunately, there is likely no changes to any of this for the next several weeks. We may have to sit here and just wait for the trade setups to come to us, wait for the market to finish wrecking everyone while it stays in this range. But that's okay, because there's a time to be in the market, there's a time to be out the market, and there's a time to go fishing. And right now, it seems like it is the time to be out the market or going fishing, waiting for these cycle lows to show up. And so here is what we continue to set as our base case. We continue to expect this sideways chop into this cycle low, and then by the time we get to the end of the month, or perhaps even early March, we should be ready to get some trades on. As I often say, the cycles are in control, and everything else is narrative, right? Traders, investors love to append a narrative to explain away the price action. And I believe Mr. Burns might have found the narrative to explain away the upside that I expect to see out of this cycle. The reverse repo has only around $100 billion remaining in it. And once that gets down to about 10 billion and is fully drained, QT may well end. And so it's funny that we can look at these months and months in advance and say we know where the weekly cycle lows are going to show up, we know where sentiment is going to be flushed out and reset, we know where the market has the highest probability of bouncing and moving to the upside. And that of course is that late February, early March timeframe. But it's funny how right on schedule we've got just some kind of catalyst showing up that could potentially be used to explain away this upcoming upward price action. So remember, nothing actually needs to change. We just need to see some kind of headline, or of course they could indeed end QT and say that they're just going to allow everything to kind of settle, remain paused for a while. And markets being forward looking will of course love to front run the idea that the printer is coming in the not too distant future. So I do wonder if this is going to be our catalyst. I do wonder if this is going to be the narrative that we explain away the upside price action. As ever though, I don't believe the narrative, I don't believe the news, I don't care what anyone's opinions are. I simply look at the cycle lows and use these to tell us what is coming next. The liquidation event we saw yesterday was actually pretty historic. It was larger than Luna, it was larger than the C19 blow up, and it was also bigger than the FTX collapse. So if you survived yesterday, you survived a historical event. Now, as British Horror points out here, the mother of all crypto liquidations occurs yesterday, and Bitcoin barely even hit the 90s. I know if it's your first cycle, this might be pretty stressful. I know if you're heavily in alts and those alts got hit a lot harder than Bitcoin did, then again, this might be quite stressful. But for any of us that have been here 1, 2, 3 cycles, even 4, you know full well that was a liquidation for ants yesterday, with Bitcoin's price falling less than 9% top to bottom. Anyone that was here for the C19 plunge knows that took no time at all to fall almost 70% top to bottom. And anyone that was here in that 2017 bull run knows that Bitcoin used to throw 30 or even 40% corrections for sport. So in the scheme of things, when we zoom out, we are still trading exactly in the same range. We only crashed to a price not seen since the 14th or the 12th of January, and that same price was observed all the way back on the 22nd of November. So really, not a great deal is actually happening. We continue to just chop up everyone that has no knowledge of cycles. We continue to see a whole heap of people out there trying to call bottoms, trying to force Elliott wave counts and all of this kind of thing. But the reality is, we need to waste more time. I saw a comment yesterday that was pretty funny. Somebody was talking about, oh, I hate having to wait for the cycle low. But time is very, very important. Okay, time is extremely important, because if all of this just occurred in one candle and reversed, we would not have reset the sentiment. We would not have flushed and worn people out emotionally. We would not have forced people to quit. It takes time. It takes constantly pumping to build people's hopes up and dumping to liquidate them, right? It takes more pumping, more dumping, more pumping, more dumping. Only once this has elapsed over and over and over again for what will have likely been, by the time we get there, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 and a bit months, it takes this kind of 3-month window to really make people throw in the towel and say something must be wrong. something must be broken. Why hasn't this thing broken out? We should be at 150k by now. Okay, it takes the time component to flush people out, to make people quit, to make people get bearish. If all of this was just a single candle to the downside and then immediately we pumped to 150k, everyone would still be extremely bullish. It would be very, very easy to sit through that and just say, well, that was just a quick flash crash, right? It takes this grinding to really, really chip away at those people that don't do the research, don't know what they hold, don't understand how the cycles work. And that is the beauty of it. We get to sit here, as we have been sat here for many, many weeks now, pointing at this cycle low and saying, this yellow squiggle makes the most amount of sense. So the beatings will continue until such time as morale improves. And again, we know that morale should start to improve by the end of the month. But so far, objectively speaking, this is nothing to be crying over. In fact, I would suggest to you guys, the Bitcoin is actually holding up pretty well. And remember, even after this massive liquidation and lots of people calling the tops and saying it's over and all of this kind of thing, Bitcoin is still worth more than all the silver in the world combined, right? We still have a higher market cap than silver. So let that sink in. Just a few years back, this seemed like a pipe dream. And now here we are with the lowest volatility we've seen in a very, very long time, worth more than all of the silver on this earth combined. Pretty wild times. My brother Nasco here, showing a very, very nice on-chain metric, the reserve risk indicator, down at the bottom, getting ready to break out. And these breakouts historically led to upside squeezes in the price of Bitcoin. So if we can get another breakout, we should be able to see an upside squeeze in the price of Bitcoin. And notice as well, all prior tops occurred with the reserve risk in this upper red area, okay? With the reserve risk in this upper red area. Prior tops occurred on reserve risk in the upper red area. And where are we at the moment? Just about to take flight from the green, okay? Lots of space overhead tells us to keep an open mind about seeing a big upside push. One last thing I wanted to point out here before we get into some charts is the early January shakeout is actually normal and to be expected. You can see in cycle one, we got a big shakeout here into January and then another one early February. In cycle two, we got another big shakeout in January, followed by another early February shakeout. In cycle three, we got another big sell-off into January, followed by a nasty shakeout into early February. And what have we had so far? We had that sell-off into early January, followed by a nasty shakeout into February. Now, I do think this time is going to be slightly different because if you go back and understand the cycle analysis, okay, in here, we had daily cycle lows. In here, we had daily cycle lows. In here and here, we had daily cycle lows. But where we are today is we've got a daily cycle low here, a daily cycle low here, and thus we still have to waste a lot more time, as I've been saying, into late February to get another daily cycle low, and then we would be allowed to move higher. So I think this shape is going to be slightly different for the first time. I think we're going to get much more of a range, as I keep saying, rather than this kind of flash and go, flash and go, flash and go. But that's simply because the cycles were aligned in the prior three cases, and as it stands right now, they are currently misaligned. So I still maintain everyone apart from cycle traders is going to be wrong here for at least a few more weeks. But the good news is, if you found this channel, then you'll be able to use these cycles to your advantage as well. Other than that, what else is there to say? In terms of Bitcoin, not a lot. We're going to keep sitting here and being patient. In the dollar, however, we've got big developments. I've long been suggesting this would get a cycle low, a breakout with a trend line, and then we would have to be looking for a weekly cycle low top. Now, so far, those of you that know me well, okay, that is a lower high. One of my favorite subtle tells from the market is the lower high. I was talking about this extensively if you've been following me for any length of time, that we would be hoping to see a lower high come in, a left translation, and here's the key part of failure. That would confirm to us that this is indeed the weekly cycle top, and thus we would be looking for a big push to the downside here into a weekly cycle low. A multi-week decline in the Dixie would of course help force gold, silver, Bitcoin, et al. To the moon. Now, Bitcoin is going to be limited by its cycles, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But the precious metal positions should easily be paying us if this is what's to set up. And most importantly, we'll be looking for that multi-week decline to be giving us some kind of major top in the weekly cycle. So slowly but surely, things are morphing into a more constructive look here. We've also been talking about getting this touch of support for the 10-year yield, followed by a breakdown. If we can do that, that will ignite risk on even further. As I said before, precious metals continue to pay us, so happy days there. Oil continues to be on its way down to that major 4-year cycle low. And again, it makes a lot of sense, right? It makes a lot of sense because inflation is not really sticky. We are cutting rates into a slowdown, et al. If you know, you know. And similarly to Bitcoin, I think the stock market has to continue in a range for a little while longer. A little bit more of this, okay, get to that same kind of cycle low window early March, or perhaps even late February. And then I think we got some longs and some big pushes coming because the cycles will be behind us and in our favor once more. So that's pretty much it for now, okay? Continuing to be patient, continue to take this thing one day day at a time, and as and when we get some ultra high probability setups to get behind, we will indeed call them out and get underneath them as we always do. I'm your boy Carol. I hope you're doing well in life, and until next time, take care, all the best, cheers, bye.
Camel Finance, he's the man to see. Rocking the markets with his contrarian spree. Trades like a pro, no fear, no shame. Sticking to his guns in his money game. He's a badass, oh yes indeed. Camel Finance got the markets key, taking us normies